evening and welcome to SVG-TV News for Tuesday, July 25th, 2023. I am Rochelle Batiste with the details. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, in collaboration with the United Nations, Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, today hosted a Development Partners Coordination meeting at the National Insurance Services Conference Room in capital Kingston. The main objective of the meeting is to strengthen the tripartite relationship with the government of SVG, its development partners and the United Nations to improve the coordination and delivery of development support to SVG as the country transitions from recovery to building resilience. United Nations Resident Coordinator for Barbados and the Eastern Caribbean, Dr. Deidre Chabako, welcomed all the partners to the meeting in person and virtually, noting that it is a testament to their commitment in helping St. Vincent and the Grenadines in its journey to building resilience and symbolizes SVG's enduring cooperation with the international community. Dr. Trebak noted that the theme for the meeting, From Recovery to Resilience, is very timely as SVG is transitioning from successive shocks, including the 2021 eruption of La Soufrière volcano, the global COVID-19 pandemic, increased indebtedness facing many other countries in the Caribbean, limited access to affordable finance, vulnerability to climate change, and natural disasters.
And we believe that all those challenges really threaten SDG progress, putting the most vulnerable at risks of being further left behind. And I know, Acting Prime Minister, how dedicated you and your government are to mitigating this risk by creating the necessary safety nets and livelihood opportunities for your people. At the same time, this current situation demands that stronger and more strategic partnerships be formed to maximize the impact of development assistance in support of your national priorities to build resilience. And in that regard, this meeting we feel is very timely because many of us as international partners have initiated last year also new cooperation cycles. That's true for the UN with the new multi-country sustainable development cooperation framework, but that's also true with USAID, EU, Canada, UK, amongst others. So as far as we are concerned, as UN development partners and international financing institution, we are really here to have a prospective engagement on how we can not only pursue and renew our ongoing commitments, but also make them more effective. More coordinated so that St. Vincent and the Grenadines can access more and better to bolster its resilience.
The UN representative used the opportunity to commend the government of SVG for its leadership and progress in building resilience.
For example, the efforts towards improvement of infrastructures, including in the tourism sector, enhancing access to education, capitalizing on the blue economy are just some examples. And I also want to acknowledge your constant, genuine interest on building partnerships that matter for the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So permit me to describe a few initiatives which illustrate how the UN and partners are working really to move the needle on what you describe as SDG 17, which is about partnerships, which is somehow the bedrock also of the Agenda 2030. And this is in support of St. Vincent's agenda to build resilience. For instance, the UK FCDO and the CDB are partnering on the Caribbean Infrastructure Fund, which provides critical economic infrastructure, such as the Port Modernization Project, which is one of the flagship initiatives. The World Bank continues to provide loan financing and grants focusing on fiscal and health resilience, or blue economy, or disaster reduction. The EU also has recently launched the Euroclima to combat climate and biodiversity issues and will partner with UNDP to execute this program. Or UNDP and USAID, for example, further supporting St. Vincent and the Grenadines with the Carry Secure program, which aims to reduce youth involvement in crime and violence, amongst others. And I want to stress that the United Nations has increased its assistance through more and more joint programs and joint programming as a means to reduce transaction costs for our government partners, with several agencies coming together to address some of the key priorities. For example, UNDP UNEP, the UN Environment Programme, and FAO have joined hands to harness the blue economy under the joint SDG fund. Or, for example, to advance economic empowerment and equality for women and girls, with UN Women and UNFPA working together to build back better with the support of Canada. Also to build resilient livelihood and increase food security, which is extremely crucial in those times, where we have FAO and WFP implementing a joint program funded by the joint SDG fund. And finally, building people resilience across sectors in education, health, or through social protection are certainly areas where the UN and development partners are really keen to continue supporting your government.
Dr. Chibok said they are also seeking to combat gender-based violence in SVG and are hoping to strengthen the work already started in this area and other areas of national development. He, however, noted that there are some questions on whether their partnership for development is having the desired impact and impact at scale.
Or how can we ensure that governments get the best results for the support they get? And really, these are critical questions that we have in a way to explore today. So that's why one of the potential outcomes we should aim for during this engagement is really also thinking through the mechanisms and coordination for our partnerships and what has to be adjusted and changed. We already know that to comprehensively address the needs of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the international financing institutions, donors, and the UN have room to improve their collaborations amongst themselves. That's a fact. Reducing the transaction cost and the burden of too many small bilateral projects should also be our priority. And unless we do this, we really cannot say that we truly work together to support acceleration of the Sustainable Development Goals at scales. So to forge effective partnerships for the 2030 agenda, we should, for example, use innovative financing for acceleration, promoting private sector investment to build resilience. For example, the UN working with the banks to de-risk projects, whereas the government continues to adapt its regulatory framework. So these are a few examples, but this is really against this backdrop that this meeting seeks to strengthen the existing tripartite relationship amongst the government, the United Nations, and development partners.
In his address at the meeting's opening ceremony, Acting Prime Minister Montgomery Daniel noted that on Monday he had frank and fruitful discussions with the UN representatives here, which he said are leading towards outstanding work programs for the further development of SVG. Minister Daniel said over the years the United Nations and its various agencies have been working well with SVG and highlighted some of the support provided to the government and people of SVG, including more recently during the 2021 volcanic eruption.
I recall many social programs were introduced to assist the immediate needs of many of the families who were dislocated at the time of the eruptions. And I can say to you, how happy are these families at this time. But yes, over the years, there are several programs to which the UN agencies would have responded to. I would not be able to list all of them here today, my brother Didier, but of course I can reflect on programs like the renewable energy programs. One where, of course, when we established the geothermal project, there was tremendous assistance in this regard. Equally, there is continuous work from the UN agencies, particularly with FAO, the Food and Agriculture Organization, which has been assisting the Ministry of Agriculture over the years. And today, St. Vincent and the Grenadines can pride itself by reducing national hunger to under 5% in this country, a tremendous achievement to this country over the years. There are many more programs in the Ministry of Agriculture, but of course equally, there would have been lots of support to Ministry of Security through peace and security programs. There would have been programs for climate change and climate resilient programs. There would have been programs established in the Ministry of Education, Tourism, and much more.
The acting Prime Minister further told the gathering at the NIS conference room that while the meeting of the development partners, the UN agencies and government officials seeks to improve coordination and delivery of development support for SVG as it transitions from recovery to building resilience, he would like to see some focus be placed on ethnic groups and their vulnerabilities.
And so particularly here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, history has revealed that the treatment of our indigenous peoples, that this group has suffered long and hard over the years, to the extent that this group has lost a people, has lost a language, and has lost a culture. This group continues to be quite vulnerable. And so, I wish to place on the agenda the consideration of such ethnic group in terms of their overall improvements to national improvement of national livelihoods.
Minister Daniel also called for support for forest restoration in the country. Also addressing the opening ceremony was Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology, Camilo Gonzalez, who noted that the COVID-19 pandemic had a debilitating development setback on SVG, particularly in its pursuit of the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
But so what, you say? We all had to deal with COVID. So I'll see your COVID, and I'll raise you the worst drought in 40 years, Minister Caesar. The worst drought experienced in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 40 years. Remembering always that in contrast to most of the countries in the Caribbean region, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, while we are increasingly moving into tourism, has a very strong and vibrant agricultural base. That distinguishes us from most of the countries in the region. But we had a drought. But I'll see your drought, and I will raise you Hurricane Elsa. And I will see your Hurricane Elsa, and I will raise you Tropical Storm Brett. And I will see your Tropical Storm Brett, and I will raise you the volcanic eruptions of 2021. I challenge you to find any country in the world over the last 3 years that has experienced COVID, drought, hurricane, tropical storm, volcanic eruption. There are not many in that club. And each one of those challenges individually would have been debilitating. Collectively, it was a perfect storm of challenges to the common developmental aspirations of the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And each of them has a lingering effect on where we are and where we plan to be in the near and medium term. And that's where we hope that all of you come in to be part of this joint and cooperative effort to not only dig us out of that hole, but set us on the path for future development.
Minister Gonzalez said despite all of these challenges from an economic perspective or GDP growth, SVG did not do terribly relative to its neighbors, and this may be due to its diversified economy.
Because all of our eggs are not in the tourism basket, we did not experience the level of economic contraction that was experienced by the more tourism-dependent countries in the region when COVID struck. the average in the Eastern Caribbean Currency Union, the average economic contraction as a result of COVID was 17%. And it would have been worse, but for the fact that we raised the average a bit, because our contraction was about 5%. There are countries to the north of us in the Eastern Caribbean who had contractions in excess of 20% of GDP as a result of COVID. But St. Vincent and the Grenadines never shut down. We continue to trade with our neighbors to the extent it was possible. We continue to have internal economic activity because we didn't have the specific days you could go to the supermarket and all of the other responses that took place elsewhere. And we don't depend as much on tourism arrival. So our contraction was severe, but relative to our neighbors, it was relatively shallow. Because of that, we were able to rebound from the COVID setback from an economic perspective more quickly than our neighbors were. The St. Vincent and the Grenadines returned to 2019 to pre-COVID levels of GDP at the end of last year, the end of 2022. None of our Eastern Caribbean Currency Union members have as yet returned to 2019 levels of production. And we're grateful for that diversity in our economy, and we're hoping even as we move further into tourism that we maintain some level of diversity and not transition out of the areas on which we've traditionally relied for growth, but that we create linkages between those areas and tourism for future development.
The finance minister further told the gathering that in the year of the volcanic eruption in 2021, the International Monetary Fund anticipated a further contraction of the economy of 6%. But because of the timely responses from the country's development partners and SVG's own contingency fund that has been set aside for natural disaster, the country was able to respond much quickly to the challenges brought on by the volcanic eruption. And the United Nations Development Program resident representative Lima Itayaba presented her credentials to acting Prime Minister Montgomery Daniel at Cabinet Room on Monday. Itayaba will be here for the next 4 to 5 years and will be working on various UNDP-related projects. According to a news release from the Agency for Public Information, these projects includes those related to water management and biodiversity, creation of a digital platform for the RSVG police force, as well as other projects related to climate change. Minister Daniel noted that given the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and the volcanic eruption of 2021, recovery projects related to water quality and management will have a positive impact on the nation. The United Nations Development Program is the United Nations lead agency on international development. UNDP works in 170 countries and territories to eradicate poverty and reduce inequality. In other news now, we hear that with the opening of several hotels across St. Vincent and the Grenadines, farmers can expect to see brighter days. This is according to Minister of Agriculture, Soboto Caesar, during the launch of the National Community Tourism Consultation last Thursday at the Methodist Church Hall. Minister Caesar said that the Ministry of Agriculture is already putting things in place to encourage farmers to start introducing new crops that the hotels will be interested in.
It has been difficult to convince the farmers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines over the past 3 years that we have been working with them in a very detailed way that you should stop growing some of the crops that you're growing, not all, some. Utilize some of the space that you have utilized for other crops and to introduce new crops. I remember going to a farmer in Greg's, and I want to recognize the family here from Greg's, the Jacksons from Greg's. I went into Greg's and I said to a farmer, you have 4 acres of dasheen. I want you to just try for me. 2,000 square feet of your land in zucchini. And he started to laugh. Said he's not going to try zucchini. Who is going to eat the zucchini? Who is going to teach him how to grow zucchini? And that there's no market for it. And we were successful over the past year to carve out a cadre of what we consider to be the adventurous farmers who decided to start to grow a new basket of commodities, because we don't want for it to be said 6 months after the opening of Sandals that our food import bill is spiraling out of control and we have to be sending away a lot of foreign exchange in order to purchase the food. So we established at the agriculture stations a farmer field school approach to teaching persons to grow many of these vegetables.
The Agriculture Minister added that in order to maintain consistency with the produce being sold to the various hoteliers, they will be introducing a quality platform.
The sensitization is out there with the farmers, but importantly, we have introduced a mechanism whereby we are advocating for a platform of aggregators. So you're not going to have a farmer in Greg's or in Diamonds or in Sanssouci producing your cabbage and putting it in the back of your pickup and taking it down on the leeward side to the hotel or to Villa or to Beckwith or anywhere that the market is. What we're going to have, you're going to have some aggregators who are certified, the Bureau of Standards, following all of the certification prerequisites outlined by the purchasers. So they would have the grading and they would have that level of consistency there. And they in turn will work with the different cooperatives to do the mobilization at that level.
Minister Caesar said other than a massive demand for food for the hotels, there will also be a huge demand for plants for landscaping.
Not only for food, but for plants. And I got a call from London where Minister of Finance was attending a meeting, said there's going to be a meeting with Sandals. I went, I had the meeting, and when I saw the list of plants that they will be utilizing to landscape, you're talking something close to $3 million worth of plants. That's taking horticulture to a whole different level. And not only the plants to landscape, but if you are in love and if you have a unique way of expressing the love, a beautiful rose sometimes can assist you. And roses and the growing of flowers and bouquets, not only for the weddings, but it's really going to bring another dimension to farming and to agriculture. And the farmers and fishers of St. Vincent and the Grenadines are fully poised for this expansion, and they are indeed grateful to all the stakeholders within the tourism sector for this very important marriage.
A number of the hotels currently under construction, including Sandals, are expected to be open at the end of the year or early in the new year. The promotion of INSEMAS 2024 have already kicked off in the region. This is according to Chairman of the Carnival Development Corporation, Ricardo Adams, who on SVG-TV's Viewpoint program on Sunday said he expects a bigger and better festival for 2024.
So one of the things that we've done is we've gotten our dates out for INSEMAS. We've gotten a flyer out. We actually did some promotions working with a private promoter. We've done some promotions in St. Lucia already at an event in St. Lucia. We're working with another private promoter who's doing an event up in the UK. So we're doing some work with him also. And we've got, as I said, our flyers out. We're already promoting on social media, because the main thing to be able to do is get the dates out there. What we often do is in the diaspora events, whenever they did picnics and that kind of stuff. We again use those opportunities to promote Vincimas. We'll be going, we're right now in discussion with Grenada, Spice Mass, to see if we can have a presence at Spice Mass also. In terms of 2024, I think the biggest thing that you're going to see is that we're going to be able to do stuff a lot earlier. It's no secret that last year we couldn't really go to people and start doing negotiations and talking to sponsors, etc., because we weren't able to pay prize monies. So if you can't pay prize monies, you can't go and start negotiating with people for 2023. It is our hope, keeping my fingers crossed, that we've been promised that prize monies would be paid significantly earlier than what happened last year. Once that happens, that then allows us to focus on planning the 2024 festival from a lot earlier. It allows us to start going out and negotiating with our sponsors and our suppliers, etc., for a lot earlier.
On improvements for the festival, Adams said efforts must be made to incorporate additional cultural elements in the rural carnival activities.
The rural carnival needs to be more than a wet, fete and juve. And what we've been pushing with the rural carnivals is the incorporation of some cultural aspects of it. So a number of the rural carnivals actually have beauty pageants. This year, a number of them would have had t-shirt jumper or junior carnival. I know Calico had, well, that zone had a junior carnival parade. I know Georgetown had a t-shirt band section. During the launching, we tried to integrate as much as possible the steel band sides from the steel orchestras from those areas. I think Beckway also had a t-shirt segment. So we have been encouraging and promoting the question of the rural carnivals, taking some of the talent that is indigenous to that area and incorporating it into their festival. And I think it's growing. Sometimes finances tend to be a limiting factor, because when you do some of those things. Now, in terms of the Calypso tents, I know last year the Georgetown tent, Georgette was trying to actually reconstitute that Calypso tent, but I think there were some challenges there. It happened a couple of years ago, and I know the Pitani tent had fallen off. But what I found is that they're being replaced now by Soca Monarch competitions in the rural areas. So the Calypso is being replaced by the Soca Monarch competitions in the rural areas, because I think that perhaps drives more people through the gates. And at the end of it, there are the economic issues to be taken into account.
Vincimas 2024 will run from June 28th to July 9th. We hear that 17 students were added to the Basil Charles Educational Foundation Scholarship Program today, with 7 receiving full-time scholarships and 10 bursaries. The total number of full-time scholarship awardees supported by the foundation now stands at 50. Addressing the handing over ceremony today at the Basil Bar in Villa, founder of the Basil Charles Educational Foundation, Basil Charles, said he started the foundation because of his passion to make quality education accessible to deserving students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds.
The foundation, as I said before, was started with a friend of mine, Donald Gillespie, when we decided to do a blues festival in St. Vincent and Mystique, and whatever money we raised from there, we would do this foundation to help send kids to school in St. Vincent. Since then, we have helped children in many different ways. We took on preschool and all the different areas, but we have helped so far upwards of 2,000 kids to school. And sorry. as we have 17 kids that we're helping, I have to say over the years, the kids that we have passed through the program have been really great and have done well. And we have here one of our past students. She would tell you about it herself. So we have had really very good cooperation, working with the schools, working with the parents, the teachers, and everyone.
Charles said that each year the foundation chooses students from a list of applicants provided.
The scholarship we give to, we ask the parents to guardian, because all the kids doesn't have their parents or whatever, to send us information and their financial background, etc., etc., and we choose the children that we think is most needy and need the help most, rather than just the ones who have the best marks. We give the donations, we start, and the first term of the year we think all kids and all parents have more expense than other term. So we divide the $1,500 into groups like this. We give $600 for the first term, like this term, and then we give $450. Is it $450? $450 for the other terms. Comes up to $1,500 a year. The only fundraising we have had so far is when we have the Blues Festival in Mystique. This year we came to St. Vincent, and we used to come to St. Vincent before, but we hope to come back steadily to St. Vincent.
Charles further urged the recipients to do their best with the assistance given to them. The Basil Charles Educational Foundation helps to bridge the gap between talent and financial constraints, empowering young minds to pursue their dreams and reach their fullest potential.